Hey there, it's Nathaniel Grimm, and welcome to my May 2025 horoscopes and predictions. So, in this video, I'm going to walk through what I think is going to be happening in the world, in society, and also I'm going to review my horoscopes for each zodiac sign. And so, you want to stick around for all of it. And May is a really important month because we're going to get Saturn in Aries finally. We're also going to get Pluto retrograde, and we're going to finish up this Mars-Pluto opposition. So, there's a lot of intensity packed into this month. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen, and we will be looking at the midpoint of May approximately with the Scorpio full moon, just as a visual backdrop for now. But I'm going to use this just as just a backdrop to first of all summarize what May is all about. So May is really heating things up, and it's heating things up in a number of ways. In our relationships, we're also going to experience a heightened sense of competitiveness and drive, excitement. May is very dynamic because we get this trine also from Venus and Mars throughout the entire month. Venus is going to be in Aries all month. Mars is going to be in Leo all month. And based on the relative speeds of those planets right now, the trine is going to go on for a while because Venus is moving relatively slowly still, and so is Mars. So with both of these planets in a fire sign, we are going to feel again more active, ideally, socially. We're going to feel maybe like we have some encouragement and motivation to like express ourselves creatively. Some of you might even feel like going on a date or, yeah, indulging in your romantic side. It's actually also a great month for athletics, athletic competition. And you don't have to be serious about it. You could just do like a, intramural sport, local sport, join a local team or something. And also, though, there are these very highfalutin concepts and topics happening too, which includes, the idea that we have to recognize in May the aspects of our life that are long overdue for change. That's because of the Sun-Uranus conjunction, which is actually happening in Taurus for the last time in this Uranus cycle, because next year it's going to happen in Gemini. And then we also have Pluto retrograde, like I said, in Aquarius, but for the first time in our lifetimes, Pluto is not going to retrograde back into Capricorn while it retrogrades in Aquarius. So this retrograde is purely focused on, those Aquarian archetypes of the future, technology. It's an air sign, remember? So the air signs and the fire signs are more, active, future focused. Earth and water are trying to preserve, and they're trying to preserve something from the past in general, right? If we're thinking about the duality of masculine, feminine, fire, air, earth, water, with Pluto only retrograding in the sign of Aquarius and staying in Aquarius throughout the retrograde, I mean, we are realizing that there's no possibility of returning to normal, whatever that means for you. So, if you're somebody who is really upset with what's going on and you wish we could rewind the clock a year or even 10 years, or if you're somebody who wishes that people were still living in like a 1950s era society, whatever you are yearning for, if you're yearning for the past in any way, that's just not ever going to happen again. Like we're not going to be able to go back to the old models because the old models are broken on all sides. On the one hand, you could look at the fact that we live in a hyper individualistic culture that where everyone's trying to grab attention, and that no longer works. From the other perspective, you could look at the fact that we've been weakened as a society by thinking that everybody is a victim. Like you can look at it on any side of the spectrum. We live in this age of polarization and extremes. And with Aquarius, with Pluto retrograde only, again, only in the sign of Aquarius, we can't go back to that old toolbox. We have to think about and embrace the idea of a future, a better and a different future that, you know, embraces maybe some of the technologies that have come out, or maybe a future that embraces a whole different system. Because again, neither extreme is working out for us. We've seen the deleterious effects of both. So, with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, I would hope that, people start to lean into the awakenings. They start to sort of project and exude this energy of like the awakenings they've been through over the past few years. So if you're watching this video, obviously you've had some kind of awakening in recent years, probably, but maybe you've kept it to yourself. You've been afraid of what family may think, how your friends may judge you. But this is like the era when you let your freak flag fly. You just, you know, embody that, you embody that evolved version of yourself and you live it in your everyday life. Because with Pluto in Capricorn, even last year, last fall, when Pluto retrograded back to the 29th degree, we had to still deal with, you know, top heavy systems. We had to deal with judgment. We had to deal with self-consciousness. We had to deal with, you know, this idea of coalescing around a status quo. When in some ways we had to watch out for our status, our reputation. We had to care about these things with Pluto and Cap. But now the goal is collective enlightenment. Like you're watching this video, you've already had probably some form of enlightenment. And you're still working on it, obviously. Everyone's working on it. We all have egos to fight against every day. But in Aquarius, we are trying to lift up the collective. We're trying to form new communities, right? We're trying to challenge the status quo. So, like, stop believing that it shouldn't be you, or stop thinking that, oh, I'll wait for someone else to do it. With Mars in Leo, Venus in Aries, we've got a lot of fire, like Mercury in Aries. Also, we got a lot of fire signs going on. Like, just lean into, your gifts. And, something that really pissed me off the other day, which is directly related to this, was like this podcast from Science Versus. This Science Versus podcast episode was trying to like undermine all the evidence in the telepathy tapes, which I haven't listened to entirely. Like I'm not like gonna sit here and try to defend everything about the telepathy tapes podcast. But this science podcast was just like doing such a lazy job of counter, just refuting and building counter arguments against the telepathy tapes. Like they were trying to disprove it in these very gaslighty kind of ways, but also they were like interviewing professors at Western universities who specialize in like psychology. So it's sort of like just interviewing priests like 500 years ago to develop counter arguments against like what scientists are doing, ironically, right? So it felt like a snake eating its tail. It was a very circular argument. So it's like you're going to try to defeat and undermine the whole concept of psychic powers and telepathy by interviewing people who have only existed inside of an ivory tower, steeped in Western ideology that's incredibly individualistic, right? So they couldn't escape the sort of the Western cage that they're trying to scrutinize this from. Because in a Western world, we're taught to be individualistic, every person for themselves. Everyone is their own island, right? Like that is the Western model. And so when you're indoctrinated under that system throughout your life, you blunt the instrument of your own intuition. Because 10,000, 20,000 years ago, when humans traveled in packs, you had to communicate non-verbally. And dare I say telepathically to someone else in your group to tell them that there is a predator around the corner without saying anything because you don't want the predator to, hear you. Or, you were connected to nature. And maybe humans 10,000 years ago knew that a storm was coming in a way that we don't. So, the lack of interconnectedness in our Western world is partly why I think Western society is teetering on the edge. But like one of the way, and you can chop this up a million ways, but one of the ways in which I view this and experience this for myself is in the scientific community. So the scientific community is, it is an atheistic, nihilistic, materialistic dogma. And, it is partly to blame for where we are because it's like, you know, it's almost justifying this world where every person is out for themselves. It's like, why not? Because there's nothing else beyond us. There is no purpose to any of this. There is no purpose to, the universe, or, everything is a coincidence. Everything is random chance. That has actually fed consumerism because it's like, okay, you're going to look for something else to find fulfillment. So I think we are coming to the end of that model. So I think we're just about 7 years away because of the Saturn Uranus conjunction in 2032. I really like that conjunction. We're about 7 years away from that conjunction in which I think we can have a totally reimagined society where we do recognize the interconnectedness of all things. And we don't have a utopia, but we have increased harmony. But anyways, with Saturn and Neptune coming up to a conjunction in Aries, on the one hand, you could see that all kinds of systems that aren't helping us progress will continue to dissolve, right? But I think one of those is just, again, the entire Western um, sort of raison d'etre, right? Why, like, why are we here, right? And like, what are we trying to do as a society? We're trying to grab more attention than the next person. We're trying to capitalize. We're trying to make more money than the next person. We're trying to, reinforce that by adhering to a scientific dogma that believes that every time is linear and it's just like, and like your life begins and it ends and there's no recurrence, there's no reincarnation, there's no karma, there's no consequences. So why not pillage the earth, right? And I'm just obviously I don't believe that, but that's where scientific, atheistic, materialistic nihilism has gotten us. And so, this is as they say, I don't remember who wrote this book, but there's a meaning recession going on. And so people subconsciously, even through politics and who they vote for, people are like, hey, let's just tear the whole system down. And so, you know, we're witnessing that the system doesn't really work anymore. Whether you look at it from the perspective of like, again, endless consumerism, which is tarnishing the earth, polluting the earth, and also the attention economy, which is basically rotting our brains with useless information and distractions. Through all of these things, these aren't tangents, by the way. I mean, these are truly the sort of inexorable forces at work that are eroding public trust, but also interpersonal trust. And, these forces are leading a lot of people into despair. And so I know that that's not probably you. I don't think you necessarily feel that way. You probably meditate. You probably do something like breath work, or you see the beauty in the divine, you see the connectedness of everything. But as long as we have this sort of, you know, again, materialistic sort of God that we worship, I do think that we are heading towards the Saturn Neptune conjunction as, being this experience of the bottom of the pit, maybe. It's almost like we're reaching the bottom of the pit where we realize that no amount of like bad handbags or experience, like indulgent experiences, are ever going to get us to where we need to go. And also we're in this age where obviously everything's polarized, and both extremes has led us here too. The hyper individualistic culture is, you know a huge problem. I think it has led to this increasingly isolationist perspective that everyone maybe has now. Like, we lack social cohesion, and then we witness how as nations we're pumping our chests and not wanting to cooperate. But on the other extreme, the population has become weaker because the other extreme believes that everyone should see themselves as a victim. And like, that's also awful. So we have to find the balance, right? Life is about finding the middle way. And astrology actually does help us, find that middle point between the dual extremes. And we're embracing duality, but we're also eventually transcending it. So, with all these transits coming up in Aries from now really through April 2026, especially, that month I've talked about before as being that sort of, hyper concentration of Aries placements. We have to find a way to step into our autonomy as people who maybe have something to believe in and we have a message to convey. So like go out there and be a leader in not necessarily just in the spiritual sense, but try to inspire people, try to restore some semblance of purpose, right? It's really about purpose. Like where are we going? And in that way, champion your individuality, champion your autonomy. But again, do so in the service of Pluto and Aquarius, transform the collective, lift other people up. But I also have a high degree of skepticism about the other side, like I said, because, if you see everybody as a victim, you see everybody as helpless, that's a reflection of your own inner world, and then you're going to feel like you can't do anything to help yourself. So you're going to go to a doctor whenever you have a problem instead of like, just becoming stronger, right? Like just, exercising and having, paying attention to what you eat. So I've just noticed that, both extremes have kind of failed us in a lot of ways. We can't just live for ourselves. We have to have, you know, there has to be some public trust. We have to feel like we are stewards of the earth and the collective as individuals. Like no person is an island. And I know I'm kind of like I'm overlapping here into the scientific stuff I talked about and the political, but like hyper individualism, like I said, leads to quite a bit of sadness and an existential sadness. But over reliance on like a big government or bureaucracy or over reliance on some administrative agency to tell you that you are a victim and you're helpless and whatever, like that doesn't work either. So let's try to let's try to find that middle ground over the next year during the Saturn Neptune conjunction, as again governing bodies and systems start to dissolve a bit. So anyways, let's also remember though with Aquarius, like we are thinking locally too. Like we're trying to find local communities, or you could, power up new communities through social media or the internet. And I actually want to take a quick moment to mention that how that's playing out in my life. So I do have an event that I just started in Los Angeles, which is really cool, and I think you should definitely check it out. So this is an event that I'm doing at a theater in LA. And this is on May 2nd, next Friday. And we did an event a month earlier, and it was a huge success. We had a theater of about 100 people, and I don't know how many live readings, but probably like 7 or 8 live readings. I also did a forecast, talked about the year ahead, and this one, I'm going to do more live readings. So even though I've retired from doing one-on-one readings through my website, after doing, 3,000 readings in the past 4 years, I am starting to shift focus towards these live events. And, speaking of proving psychic abilities and also proving that there's validity to astrology, I think this event does a great job of it because, I'm doing cold readings of the audience and I don't know anything about these people, which is the same way it works with my readings one-on-one anyways, but it's just great to see it in front of an audience. So, for example, at the last event, someone came to the stage and I mean I could literally like, just sense that they had this strong energy field, and because of that, I was like, I think you're a Reiki healer. But that was also based on their chart. And I looked at her, I was like, you're a Reiki healer. And she was like, yes, I am. There was another reading I did where I said that the grandmother was adopted. Grandmother was adopted. So, and a whole host of other things too. Like I was able to figure out that someone was a therapist based on their charts. So I think this event is exactly what, spiritually minded people should be doing. It doesn't have to be this exact thing, right? You don't have to do this exact thing. I mean, you could if you wanted, but The point is we have to push back against the again atheistic materialistic conception of reality, um, which again is a self-fulfilling prophecy by virtue of the fact that live in a society that is individualistic. So for most people, like, just most people in the world, it's like their intuitive gifts have just atrophied through generations of not having to use it. So, like, if you were to live in a forest for 5 years and have to survive in the wilderness, you would develop pretty strong instincts because you would have to listen, your senses would sharpen. And, would you start telepathically communicating with people? I don't know. But certainly you'd be a lot better at reading people if you had to fend for yourself for 5 years. So, anyways, I'm really excited to bring this to the stage in Hollywood. It's at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, and it starts at well, the doors are at 6:30. It starts shortly thereafter. But if you're in LA, if you're in Southern California, I'd recommend getting tickets before they sell out in the coming days. And again, I have North Node in Aquarius. I mean, I feel like this is actually in my eighth house. So to me, this is emblematic of what I need to do. But also, again, the collective has to think about ways to bring spiritual communities together, but also to be bold in legitimizing spiritual practices. It's not fringe. It doesn't have to be fringe anymore, right? Like people, you know, are increasingly turning to different types of remedies, right? Natural remedies. People are turning to, yeah, let's say Reiki healing as a form of, self-understanding and as a way to work through energetic blockages in the body. So, I mean, while Venus is in Aries, Mars is in Leo, think about bold and creative ways that you can exude this confidence and provide your gifts to the world. Because I know if you're watching this video, you have those gifts. Maybe you're not an expert at astrology. Who cares? Maybe it's something else. Maybe, you know, and the part of this is about trusting yourself. Like maybe you're actually really good at reading faces. You might be amazing at reading faces and you just haven't given yourself permission to do face readings for people. So I want you to just rip away all the impediments, especially May 17th, by the way, when the Sun and Uranus form a conjunction. So anyways, thanks for attending that part of the video. But yeah, let's continue on. So the dominant transits, I talked about a little bit. Pluto stationing retrograde, Saturn entering Aries, Venus trine Mars, Mars opposite Pluto at the beginning of the month, which is very combative and vengeful. We have Uranus conjunct Algol kind of right now. And Uranus was conjunct Algol last July. And obviously that was a very destructive middle part of the month. If you look at the rally in Butler, PA, and then Saturn is squaring Jupiter towards the end of the month, which is partly what we're witnessing in trade and tariffs and also higher education. Which, by the way, when Uranus goes into Gemini later this year, higher education is being disrupted massively. Um, and then in terms of the key ingresses, we had Venus enter Aries April 30th, or it's about to enter Aries at the time I'm filming this. So April 30th to June 5th, Venus is in Aries. So the entire month of May, which is putting the spotlight on, you're the Aries part of your chart, but also your need for independence and decisiveness in relationships. Also, it can put a spotlight on entrepreneurial opportunities. And again, the merits of just standing in your own independence. And it will go past its, post shadow phase at some point this month, during which point you can really move forward with relationships. Mercury enters Taurus May 10th. The Sun enters Gemini May 20th. Mercury enters Gemini May 25th. And Saturn enters Aries May 24th. In terms of the retrograde and direct motions, we just have one retrograde, Pluto, stationing retrograde May 4th. Obviously, that's a big deal for the collective. It's not going to be quite as individually felt, unless you have major placements from 0 to 3 degrees of the fixed signs. So now let's go through the noteworthy transits. So first off, we have Mars opposite Pluto. Sorry, I have to adjust something on my screen quick. So first we have Mars opposite Pluto. So I'll backtrack here to the beginning of the month. So we have Mars opposite Pluto from May 1st through 18th, technically. If you use the 10-degree orb of influence, it is the first half of the month, basically. I talked about Mars opposite Pluto in the previous April video because it was happening in April as well. But, Mars opposite Pluto, very contentious. It's very competitive. It is a little bit manipulative. It's power hungry, but it can also push back against power and try to rebalance well, it can sort of play offense and go up against corrupt figures and corrupt forces. So it has this sort of activist notion to it, especially with Pluto and Aquarius. Um, so really the first half of the month, make sure you're disengaging from, you know, power hungry people. Don't dig your heels and let anger boil over. Don't let anger fester. You have to like avoid that and maintain some sense of balance. But it's also great if you're an athlete, you're competing. Mars is no longer retrograde, obviously. Opposing Pluto, you could do a lot of sports activities right now. You could also pursue content creation with Mars and Leo, like maniacally, just start making a lot of content. I think it's probably why I'm doing the show. Mars opposite Pluto, Mars and Leo. I'm feeling like, hey, I want to prove something in a creative capacity. Venus conjunct Neptune. Again, technically, it's actually from May 1st through 15th. And Venus conjunct Neptune can kind of elevate our sense of beauty and fashionability. Great conjunction for doing any fashion work, especially if you're an entrepreneur in the fashion space. Um, it can create some confusing scenarios in relationships or financial situations. And with Mars opposite Pluto combined, um, some of you might get into some financial conflicts or you'll be fighting about money or investments or something. But Venus conjunct Neptune does increase the odds that someone would lie to you, so you have to avoid, you know, charlatans and liars. You might catch somebody in a lie. Um, you also might change your values around Neptunian things, which could be like spirituality, or you could even just like lean into creativity during the first half of May. Mercury conjoins Chiron May 5th through 10th. The Mercury Chiron conjunction can be a little painful. So May 5 through 10, you might exchange some hurtful words with somebody. So just be aware of that. And then Venus trines Mars the entire month. Oh, and sorry, Mercury conjunct Chiron can also be um, informative for your health journey, healing journey. You might realize that you have to heal some kind of soul-related wound shamanistically, or you might just adopt a different perspective about a healing sort of modality. And then again, Venus trines Mars all month, and I'll show you the how that happens. So Venus stationed stationed direct, only recently, and Mars sort of as well, in a way. I mean, not a lot. I mean, Mars stationed direct a while ago, but um, basically because these planets are moving relatively slowly right now, and Venus technically is moving faster, but still slow. Venus is like catching up to Mars very slowly in a trine throughout the month. So you can see how that trine is just continuing. And the trine from Aries to Leo, I mean, that's passionate, right? That feels like a date that's just really steamy, spicy, titillating, and it could also be an athletic competition. You might, again, play sports with friends. You might just feel motivated to be more socially active. I think that's great. So this trine is beautiful in a lot of ways. And if you're an entrepreneur or about to be an entrepreneur, you're hesitating, take the leap now. Take the leap now for sure. Because, the fire element takes risks. And, Venus in Aries values risk taking. It values boldness. And, the last time Venus was in Aries, it already has been in Aries a few times or twice this year, when it went direct into Aries, whenever that was in like February or something. And then it retrograded in Aries March 1st through March 27th. But during those times, Mars, which disposits Venus in Aries, was in Cancer. And that's brutal. Mars in Cancer dispositing Venus and Aries, both planets either in detriment or in a fallen position. That, that creates a lot of discord in relationships. And it can make people kind of whiny and it can create a lot of challenge in the home, in families. But now Venus and Aries disposited by Mars and Leo. I mean, that's fireworks. That's decisive. That's coherent between those planets. They're in a coherent relationship. So, again, if you want to be a content creator, do it now. If you want to be an entrepreneur, do it now. If you want to get into sports again, do it now. If you want to start working out, do it now. Um, if you want to go on a date, do it in May. And even around that Scorpio full moon, I mean, there is still a trine technically of Venus and Mars. So that Scorpio full moon, you know, that's pretty spicy. Ruled by Mars and Leo, trining Venus and Aries. That's looking pretty heated. Hopefully in a good way. Hopefully you're not in a conflict there. I mean, ideally, you're connected to somebody like physically. I mean, you don't have to be, obviously, if you're not into like physical connection. I mean, fair enough. But if you're looking for a really passionate relationship, yeah, something's coming through on the Scorpio full moon there. So, anyways, we have Mercury square Pluto May 10th to 14th, around this time as well. The I know I talk about this a lot when I do predictions, but Mercury square Pluto always shows slightly higher risk of a deadly accident in the headlines. So yet again, we could see that. Mercury conjunct Pluto back in February, I think it was January. When was that? Yeah, that was like late January. Yeah, late January. I talked about that, in my January, February predictions. Like, yeah, my January predictions, I talked about that. We had all those aviation airplane crashes during that time when Mercury was conjunct Pluto. We had the big one at the Reagan airport while Mercury was conjunct Pluto, I believe. And does that mean it's going to happen again? No, but like Venus square Pluto in the opening square is going to probably glean more insight into one of those crashes. We're probably going to learn more about what happened in one of these crashes from like late January, early February. Um, There could also be a cybersecurity moment there, incident in the financial space, a secret coming out about somebody, maybe some insider trading scandal surfacing. I mean, that's something I predicted about April. I mean, I said in the middle of April there would be financial shortcuts being taken by powerful people. And what happened in the middle of April was Trump lifted the tariffs or one of the tariffs at a very um, sort of suspicious time. And Adam Schiff was like, okay, let's investigate. He called for an investigation into insider trading because Trump's tariff announcement may have, you know, been leaked beforehand to his buddies, and they could have made quite a bit of money on the stock market. So, so based on the astrology, I think that was pretty much the Sun Mars Pluto square right when the Sun went into Taurus. I also talked about, April 19th, 20th, 21st, that I said, yeah, even April 21st, especially. I said that a powerful figure would probably pass away. And that ended up being the Pope. Although at that time I was thinking a little bit more that it could have been like I was thinking it would have been more of like a almost like an attack on a leader. But nevertheless, the Pope passed away when Saturn was exactly conjunct the North Node in Pisces, like exact the day of. And Pisces is obviously a very religious, spiritual sign in a way. So with Saturn being chronic illness, age, time, and the North Node showing destiny, that was pretty literal. That was like the Saturn North Node conjunction. So, anyways, yeah, Mercury square Pluto mid-May. Definitely some secrets leaking out. Maybe it's a financial scandal, and with a slight chance of an accident. It is squaring, during the Scorpio full moon. So people could be learning about in the news the death of somebody, especially through maybe an invasion or a heist, or maybe someone like breaks into someone's house and maybe there's like a theft of money. That was another thing I predicted about mid-April, by the way. I said mid-April someone would steal possessions, valuables, and that's what happened to Christy Nome. Someone stole her purse or something, her Gucci purse with like 3K in it. And yeah, that was in line with my predictions. So yeah, with Mercury square Pluto in your personal life, expect possible revelations, I guess. And yeah, let's keep going through the transits. Mercury, or sorry, the Sun conjoins Uranus May 17th. I mean, again, this is the last time in this Uranus cycle, the last time in most of our lifetimes that the Sun and Uranus are going to meet up in Taurus. So, with Uranus and Taurus since 2018, we've had to really reinvent our values, right? We've had to also reinvent or overhaul our sense of self-worth or just like what we value as an individual. So this conjunction is showing, especially the fixed signs, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, but also everybody. It's showing everyone what they need to change, what needs to change in their life because it's so maybe out of step with their values at this point. So you're going to have a revelation about that around the time of the Sun Uranus conjunction. That conjunction's happening on Trump's midheaven, which it did kind of, I think, last year as well. But Trump could have a huge change in his reputation around that time. He could work with like a tech company, or I think there's something going on with Trump and a tech CEO around May 17th. Maybe Trump suddenly turns on a tech company. Maybe it's something with TikTok. Maybe it's something with Meta or like Zuckerberg is involved. And Trump is like, you know, calling for, I don't know, some sort of action to be taken on a tech company. But Mars is on his Pluto at that time. So, and it's on JD Vance's Sun. So it's not impossible that between, let's say, May 3rd and May 17th or so, May 18th even, that it's not impossible that there could be a change in leadership in the United States. It's not impossible that JD Vance could be president between May 1st and May 18th. But if I'm thinking about it more broadly at a longer time scale, I think Mars retrograde next time in late 2026, early 2027 is a lot more detrimental to Trump because that's his Mars return while Mars is retrograde while Mars is retrograde with the South Node on his Mars and Jupiter on his Mars in Leo. Like that to me feels like a cardiac thing, a cardiac issue. But again, like very much. Remember, Uranus is on Algol this month, and Mars is on his Pluto. And even May 3rd, I didn't talk about that yet, but like May 3rd and 4th, like those are the probably the most pivotal days of the year in a lot of ways. Because Pluto stations retrograde on May 4th. And when Pluto stations retrograde, it brings up these themes of like death and rebirth and transformation. And The Pope's death actually has a lot to do with that because we're already in the Pluto stationary period. But even here, the moon is in Leo, joining Mars. And the moon is exactly opposite where it was when the Pope died at that point, May 3rd. So the Pope passed away when moon was in Aquarius, conjunct Pluto. And now, May 3rd, it's opposite. And so it's drawing from Leo, which is about kings and queens and royalty. So you do have to wonder if someone in a royal position is under duress or they're being taken out or they're being attacked or just maybe they're being hacked or something. Um, so yeah, May 3rd and 4th to me are the most pivotal days of 2025. There's something very fated about May 3rd and 4th with Pluto stationing on the 4th. And you know, coming off the heels of a Taurus new moon, which squared Mars and Pluto, and then a Scorpio full moon coming up with the chart rulers, or sorry, the rulers of the full moon, Mars and Pluto, still opposing each other pretty much. Like that can be very damaging. That can be um maybe even warlike because Mars is on the World War II Pluto right now, essentially. Like the outbreak of World War II happened with Pluto at 2 degrees of Leo. So, um, but yeah, the Sun Uranus conjunction is showing you what is long overdue for a change, like I said. And then Mercury conjoins Uranus May 24th. So I gotta bear with me here. Um, Mercury conjunct Uranus is innovative. You might learn something about a new technology or how to use AI differently at that time. You might find out some surprising news if you have major placements around 27 degrees of the fixed signs. And also, Mercury conjunct Uranus can be just sort of a day where you're just suddenly getting downloads, psychic intel. You're learning, just you're soaking up a lot of information. Um, and even that day, there could be a bit of a crash, an accident or something. Some news about crypto, and maybe an airline makes an announcement about something. And we also have Saturn, like that same day, going into Aries. So with Saturn going into Aries, like on May 24th, we're entering a whole new period where, you know, we're getting the Saturn Neptune conjunction, meaning again, systems are starting to dissolve from the old model of, I think really the Western world. But um, and I'm not sitting here as like some advocate for communism or something. I'm not trying to do that. I mean, I still believe that capitalism is the greatest system that has been invented. It's just not perfect. And it allows for consumerism, which has led to a lot of existential dread. And again, it's science justifies consumerism in a lot of ways because according to science, again, your life begins and it ends. You don't carry any, according to scientists, you don't carry any karma with you. You only have consequences to your actions through the lens of the law. But there is no divine consequence according to science. And for that reason, who cares if you gorge on food? Who cares if you are lazy? Who cares if you only look out for yourself? Who cares if you're an asshole to people? Like, and by the way, in the absence of like faith or spirituality or religion, one of the side of the political spectrum has taken up their own religion, basically. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to get into it, but basically, like, there is a side of the political spectrum that worships at the altar of, you know, basically puritanically scrutinizing everything you say, every word you use. It's like, come on. And then, of course, the other side worships at the altar of basically a person who is claiming to be or claiming to want to be this all-powerful leader. So in either case, it's pretty fraught. But with Saturn and Neptune coming together, we're going to see how those systems, neither of those systems is working. Um, Saturn Neptune conjunctions can involve the healthcare industry. So there could be major changes with like the healthcare sector, whether that's, I don't know, hospital systems, vaccination plans, and also, again, Saturn Neptune does oftentimes show that a an authority figure is no longer able to hold the center and hold their power. And sometimes an entire ideology falls apart. So, the last time we had this conjunction in 1989, 1990, we had not the full death of communism, obviously, but we did like communism took a big hit in those years. So this time around, you know, are people going to be advocating for like a UBI with AI displacing jobs? Are people going to um, are governors of certain states going to rebel against the executive branch, the federal government? Because I mean, states are basically taking their own stances now regarding tariffs and other things. So is Saturn in Aries a precursor to a civil war in the US? Not impossible. Not that the civil war would happen this month, obviously, but it may kind of set the tone for it. And also, with all the Aries energy coming in, people are going to be looking for a tough leader, though, to either stand up to the other person or to, yeah, demonstrate toughness in a different way. But I do think a lot of people are going to be shifting towards kind of re-strengthening themselves, regardless of whether you're left or right, regardless of whether you believe everyone's a victim, everybody needs help, or if you believe that there should be no government intervention of anything and everyone should be looking out for themselves, like whichever side of the extremes you're on. And honestly, most people are on one side or the other, which is really sad, by the way. I'm not saying that you are. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably a little bit more, yeah, hopefully you're just a little bit more rational than that. But but yeah, I still think though that people are going to realize that they do have to lift themselves up a little bit with Aries being the dominant sign over the next year. Um, Saturn in Pisces has shown us, has I think numbed a lot of us to the like modern world. Like a lot of people with Saturn, like with this transit, have disconnected from the world, unplugged, or been completely plugged into the phone and, have been numbed that way. But now with all these planets going into Aries, we're getting into this more raw, visceral sort of energy. And maybe we're gonna be called to like fight in a military or something. We have to, rebuild our muscle or something. So, anyways, we also have a superior conjunction of Mercury and the Sun on May 29th. Great time for pitching, selling, presenting, teaching, reading, writing, things like that, contracts. And then, yeah, the Saturn Neptune conjunction is in full effect from May 24th through next February, March. So we are seeing the the end of certain systems. With Pluto and Aquarius, though, some of these systems had to be decentralized. I've been talking about this for years. I said this last video too, but like, I have literally been saying bureaucratic systems are going to be decentralized. And people watch those videos, they're like, yeah, like stick it to the man and vote for this candidate. And they think that I'm trying to say like advocate for a certain political candidate. It's like, no, I'm telling you the very apparatus of the federal government is going to be disassembled, and whether you like it or not. And that's exactly what happened. Um, but I'm not advocating for the president de jure. I'm just saying like the Pluto and Aquarius archetype is showing us that it's helping us from any perspective, right? It's just challenging the status quo. So even if like you don't agree with the paring back of the ex or of the sort of bureaucratic arm of the government, so be it. Well, start politicking in your own way in your local community. Start your own group. And then we have Jupiter square the north and south nodes. From technically, I would argue May 12th until early June. And Jupiter square the north and south node really does imply that there's going to be some pivotal legal decisions handed down, maybe tech related, especially with Mercury conjunct Uranus. So maybe around May 24th, some sort of major litigation is brought forth or settled regarding a tech company. And also, you could see further momentum or decisions around certain like Supreme Court decisions with regarding the legality of Trump's deportations or his other moves to like take away funding from higher educational institutions. I think there's a lot of news at the end of May in the legal sphere, basically, regarding higher education, um, research grants to educational institutions, and also with this square, you could see, again, tech related legislation. So, yeah, let's also go through the new and full moons in May. These new and full moons will, really define the the month. Because with the lunar cycle, these are the with the new moon, this is an activation point, planting of a seed, and the full moon is a climax. So we have the full moon in Scorpio on May 12th, and this is a powerful one because at the 22nd kill or be killed degree, the karmic 22nd Capricornian degree, it's a critical degree. And it's ruled by Mars, which is trining Venus, which again is kind of passionate and spicy. If you're looking for like a physical connection with someone, Pluto's retrograde though, and squaring Mercury. So, so I actually think that around this time there could be some sort of revelation into, I don't know, corruption among the powerful around, maybe in the financial realm, but it could be just like some sort of revelation about corruption that agitates the masses and makes the masses want to change the whole system. Like it could be something like that, or again, maybe a high profile accident or an investigation into an aviation company or financial company, or regarding financial dealings and cyber crimes even. But for you, I'll talk about, the impact for each zodiac sign. But, for you, this is as a Scorpio full moon, it can be very transformational, but it's like insights are coming through from the subconscious. And, you're really digging deep into a problem or digging deep into a situation and, finding some really profound answers. And then the other chart ruler is Pluto. I talked about it, squaring Mercury. So, so yeah, I mean that Scorpio full moon, it is the climax, by the way, of something that began on November 1st with last year's Scorpio new moon. It could be a time for you to gauge your financial health. And then again, there's transformations and maybe sudden change within your life at the subconscious level. And then again, secrets revealed with Mercury square Pluto. And collectively, I think there could be some university funding up in the air, or sort of maybe the courts get involved with that. Then we have a Gemini new moon on May 26th. And, this is, I think, a little bit more benign. It's ruled by Mercury, which is trining Pluto in Aquarius. I think that's a nice trine. And it's sextiling Saturn. So, and we're starting to, see that Pluto Saturn sextile. which is showing that while we are, with the Pluto Neptune, or sorry, Saturn Neptune conjunction, we're breaking down, dissolving certain systems. We also have opportunities to build anew and transform these systems productively, maybe in the aftermath of some authority figure passing away. But it's a very innovative new moon. But it could show us a new world that's just so dominated by tech and AI at that point, because Pluto is retrograding again, but it's not going to go back into Capricorn. So there's almost like a notion here of like, again, we can't go back to the old way of things, but through the lens of AI and tech. Like we can't just rely on VHS tapes anymore to like watch movies and, you know, have a more meaningful experience with the art or the music by buying records. It's like everything is technology is ubiquitous. And it is going to displace a lot of jobs. And I think we'll talk about that during that new moon. The education system, again, could be under duress at that time. People could be kind of imagining new ways to educate people. I think both primary and secondary and university education systems are under a lot of pressure now to kind of like change their whole model because, obviously technology is going to make it, you know, easier to learn from anywhere. You know, um, there's also, again, whole new belief systems and doctrines and like spiritualities left out of the education system. And I think that has to be considered. But I really think it's about, you know, tele-education where you can, theoretically, you should be able to take a class from anywhere, from any professor. And yet, universities are still incredibly have a scarcity mindset, or they're playing on scarcity, or it's almost scarcity marketing, I guess, where they're only allowing, a small slice of people to get in. They're only allowing certain people to get in, low acceptance rate. And yet, like with video conferencing, theoretically, these schools should be opening up. I think they're professors to the masses. So a lot of people are turning against higher education. And again, there will be new methods of teaching with AI. There also could be some executive overreach undermining the courts at that time, and then legal cases, like I said, pertaining to tech companies. So now let's talk about I guess we could just summarize quick May before I talk about the horoscopes. So let's do that. Yeah, let's do that first. So to summarize May, and I guess April quick. I mean, April again, we witnessed a fiasco with the tariffs. And, rates were set using arbitrary equations. And also we had calls to investigate insider trading, which I predicted. Um, and also, as I predicted, universities became an ideological battleground. And, I said that in mid-April there would be a Tiananmen Square type event at a college campus. I mean, the closest thing I could find was the hunger strike at Occidental in LA. And I live pretty close to Occidental, so I don't know, maybe I was picking up on that. But activist notions are taking root for sure. Also, the legality of Trump's deportations were called into question, and the Pope passed away as Pluto stationed. So in May, um, we're going to begin with, again, a significant retrograde of Pluto. And also, yeah, I want to mention this with Mars and Leo, it's underscoring the state of our cardiac health. Because we're only one Mars cycle away from 2 years from now, Mars retrograde in Leo with Jupiter and the South Node in Leo. And at that time, I do think cardiac health will be front and center in the news. And I think that, you know, there's a certain product that was released a couple of years ago, which I talk about a lot very cryptically, But you know what it is if you know what it is. If you know, you know. But there was a certain product that was released a few years ago, and I do think that it probably has had an impact on heart health. So I think people are going to realize that in a couple of years during the retrograde of Mars. Again, in Leo, conjunct the South Node, conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter is inflammation. So we're talking about inflammation of the heart. That really does worry me for the collective. So yeah, it's pretty messed up. So just not, I don't know. I'm not going to talk about that any further. The Sun Uranus conjunction is happening in Taurus in Taurus for the final time in this Uranus cycle. So remember, if you have a lot of fixed sign placements, this is revealing to you what in your life deserves a radical change. Where have you stagnated? So, fixed signs, you're known for being persistent and sometimes stubborn, but with Uranus in a fixed sign, it's just less productive to stay in place. So for the fixed signs, like liberate yourself. If you're trying to become an astrologer, like go do it. And then again, the Saturn Neptune conjunction is starting to take hold. And this is going to further dissolve the old paradigms, the old world that was founded on, you know, these economically advantageous like consortiums and peace accords and like NATO and the WHO and all of these organizations and alliances, they're going to start breaking apart for various reasons. And part of that is because we don't believe in those institutions anymore, because they have failed us. The world's also just gotten too messy, too overwhelming, and our cranial computers can't process it anymore. And Jupiter and Gemini hasn't helped. It's totally overloaded the airwaves. Um, and I think again, there's a social disconnect and isolation, which is mirrored in our isolationist global policies, though. So, anyways, but on a personal level, you can find connection this month, and it can be really passionate with all the fire sign placements. Um, in terms of major predictions, I've already kind of gone through some, but there could be a major sports injury in one of the NBA or NHL playoff games with the Mars-Pluto opposition. I do worry about that, especially as a Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Wild fan. Um, AI will further encroach on jobs and disrupt the job market. That's pretty obvious. And Trump's reputation takes a big hit due to tariffs. And also, the tariffs are going to continue to pit many states against the federal government. So, anyways, that's that. Let's talk about the horoscopes. Yeah, I think May should be a welcome change for most signs. It's gonna again increase the heat and the passion and the drive in general. And signs are all I think all signs are gonna feel like they're coming out of a slumber from the previous retrograde months. And there's a lot to pay attention to though, keep track of. And if you want to, track your rising sign first, that's great, but then also track your sun and moon. But if you want the details on 2025 entirely, I do have 2025 horoscopes through my website down below. Um, and also, by the way, I do have a class that I have available on my website now about planets, planetary cycles, and retrogrades. It's 3 hours of pre-recorded lectures and a live webinar on top of that. So sign up for that class, enroll in that class, and you can access all the materials right away. So anyways, without further ado, let's talk about each sign. And I'll begin with Aries, work my way around. So Aries, the Scorpio full moon, May 12th, is in your eighth house. And the eighth house full moon is very revealing towards your shadow work. It may surface some insights from your subconscious. You could also hit like a big financial milestone and others might be, figuring out what they want to do financially in a partnership. Some Aries might be uncoupling from someone in terms of resources. But I think for many Aries, it actually should be a very passionate full moon because Mars rules the full moon in your fifth house there. And Mars in the fifth is, creative, but also, I think, very passionate about romance. So if you're looking to re-enter the dating scene, it can be great for that. You also might have to face some fears, though, in other domains. Some areas are going to have to face their fears around the Scorpio full moon, or tap into their finances or something, or reassess their finances. But with Venus in your first, also, you should be feeling fairly charismatic. You should be exuding a confidence in relationships. And again, if it's not romance for you, if you don't feel romantic at that time, instead you could, pour a lot of energy into creative activities. And yeah, with Pluto, the other ruling planet of Scorpio, in the 11th house, you might be reflecting on the transformation you want to drive either in a group or in a community. Um, you might be making more money off of something in the social media world, or you could be running the financial side of some kind of community or group. You could be managing money for a community. Um, also, yeah, I think for a lot of Aries, this is actually financial though. But if you're an Aries who's looking to, you know, boost your financial success, look no further than Mars here. Drive into that creative zone, do something creative, monetize your creativity. And if you're an Aries who's just looking for some sort of just passionate moment, I mean, go on that date. It could be really, really titillating. And Pluto does square Mercury from your second house, though. So a friend from the 11th house there could be telling you a secret, or you could learn that one of your friends is in dire need of money. Or, I mean, honestly, some areas you might be asking a friend for money. Or, you could, yeah, there could be a secret that's leaked to you from a friend or vice versa as well. Then we have the Gemini new moon on May 26th. And for you, that is happening obviously in your third house there. And at that point, Saturn's in Aries. So the Gemini new moon ideally is a time where you're launching a new communications related project, or you're taking a road trip, you're learning something new. Maybe you are connecting with a sibling. It could just be a busy day, the new moon for you. You could be learning about AI with the trine to Pluto. Yeah, you could be traveling, communicating a lot with people that day, taking a lot of appointments. And it's ruled by Mercury, which is in the third house at that time. So it's a very intellectually interesting new moon, but it might not be necessarily the most memorable. You might just be it might just be a hectic day. But if you wanted to start writing a book, or if you wanted to start a podcast, you could do that. Saturn is now in your sign, so you're taking life more seriously and you're focusing on your long-term goals. Yeah, you have Neptune there as well, so some areas have maybe gone through a health crisis though. I think a lot of areas are taking a strong look at their health now. And Venus is still in the first house there, conjunct Chiron, so you might be doing some healing in a relationship, but also with the trine to Mars still. You could continue pressing ahead with your creative endeavors. And creativity could be really healing for you at this time, as could, you know, romance, honestly. Like, I think for some of you, it's just you want to get into you want to have a romantic connection with someone again. And creative writing I think is supported by this time. So if you wanted to launch a new creative writing project, that's also great. And yeah, I mean, with Saturn and Neptune here in the first house, I talked about this in my 2025 horoscopes, which you should download, but Saturn, Neptune in the first house is potentially dissolving something that you thought you wanted, but it also could be dissolving your ego, and then suddenly the skies open up and you realize, hey, I am going to have an awakening. I'm having an ego death, or um, I want to pursue the spiritual path, or I want to surrender some of my attachments, or I want to do something big with the time I have left. So, in that way, it's actually pretty profound. So, some of you could be learning about new healing or health techniques actually to manage the Saturn Neptune conjunction in your sign, which is not easy, like I said. It could bring up the necessity to tackle certain health issues or even addictions, honestly, or anxieties. Okay, so now we're going to go to Taurus. Taurus, the Scorpio full moon, May 12th, that's in your seventh house. So this is a major climax in a relationship. Some of you are, yes, breaking up with somebody, but others are having a really um, deep experience with a partner that is sort of getting into the subconscious. You are facing shadows together. You're having a physical connection together, a psychic connection. A lot of Tauruses, though, are probably navigating financial things with their partners or with their friend or something. So if you're a Taurus who is moving in with a partner recently or now or at this time or in the future or around this full moon, yeah, maybe you're just crossing your T's and dotting your I's with the financial implications of that. Other Tauruses are learning about a secret that their partner was keeping from them. Other Tauruses are, yeah, feeling betrayed at this time. But with Mars ruling it in the fourth, for some of you, it's actually more of a family skirmish, or you're putting a lot of energy into your home. So you could be, buying furniture with your partner and moving it around, or you could be, um, I don't know, just fighting with your family a bit, lifting the furniture with your partner. Pluto is retrograding in the 10th, so a lot of you are, um, transforming your whole conception of like what you want to do for your career. A lot of Tauruses with that Sun-Uranus conjunction are maybe surprising themselves by suddenly deciding to pivot completely in their career. Or maybe you're deciding you want to become a parent. Um, but yeah, with that Sun-Uranus conjunction, which is pretty much happening around that full moon, a lot of Tauruses are having to brace for some shocking revelations at that time, especially in their relationships. And Pluto squaring Mercury. So yet again, with Mercury square Pluto in your modality, there are some sudden epiphanies and revelations coming through. But I do think, like in the most mundane sense, like I think most Tauruses are navigating financial situations with either a business partner or, yes, a romantic partner. Um, and then Venus is in the 12th. So, maybe you're working out some karma in your relationships. And also, maybe some of you are looking back at a past relationship still in the 12th house, just to avoid having any secretive behind the scenes relationships if you're a Taurus, because you could really get caught with that. Um, so yeah, and avoid gossiping about anyone you're close with the full moon in the seventh. Yeah, that would generate some bad karma. And then the Gemini new moon, which I won't switch to here. Um, but the Gemini new moon on May 26th is in your second house. And that's, also featuring Mercury in the second. So the Gemini new moon could be a new job, new salary. You manifest maybe more money, more possessions. I think a lot of Tauruses are spending more money on possessions at the end of May. Maybe you have to buy a lamp or you have to buy a couch, like I said. Um, Other Tauruses are finding more clever ways, more nimble ways to make money, especially using AI with Pluto trining Mercury. With Jupiter in the second house, I mean, the Gemini new moon could be a time where you manifest a lot more money or you spend a lot more. Jupiter can just be expenditures in the second house there, like you're spending a lot. Um, and then Saturn goes into your 12th house. So with Saturn in the 12th, there could be a key authority figure in your life who starts to age quite a bit. I mean, a lot of people have to say goodbye to an authority figure at some point when Saturn is in the 12th house. But other Tauruses are trying to find a more spiritual foundation going forward with Saturn there. Um, and they are finding a lot of answers in isolation, in places of isolation. But yeah, think about that Gemini new moon as um, it is a little bit more reflective for you with Venus in the 12th still, but with the Venus conjunct Chiron in your 12th, you could be going through a spiritual healing with a partner. And you could be healing by sort of changing the arrangement of your home. So I think feng shui would be a great idea. I think if you just like work on rearranging your home a little bit, you could manifest more money. That's what that's about. So let's go to Gemini. So Gemini, you have the Scorpio full moon in your sixth house, and the full moon in the sixth house is definitely a milestone, maybe in your fitness or with your exercise, your nutritional sort of plans. Some of you, though, will be realizing that you have to manage a health related thing. Others are realizing something about their pet. But with Mars ruling the full moon from the third, some of you might be. So, I mean, some of you could be traveling, honestly, like on a road trip with a coworker or something, or for work. I think some Geminis are actually traveling there or just doing a lot of work. And maybe you're realizing you need to take like a mental health break from work, or maybe you're realizing that, yeah, work has like sort of stressed you out, but also affected you at a physical and energetic level. Um, and then Pluto is in the ninth, also ruling the full moon. So Geminis, you're reflecting on your entire belief systems. And with Mercury in the 12th, especially, you are, in a very pensive mood. So a lot of Geminis, you're having to maybe face a fear in a health context. I don't know. I'm not trying to say all Geminis need surgery, but like some Geminis might be facing some kind of procedure. Um, or maybe they've held off dealing with a health problem until now. Or again, you're just working yourself to the bone. And Venus is in the 11th. So that's great though. I mean, that's really good for like socializing. And you have Saturn at the later degrees of Pisces here, so ideally you're starting to confirm what you want to be doing with your life, what you want to be doing with your career. Um, Mars trining Venus in social houses, the third and the 11th. Again, really social, really fun, really social, and you could go to concerts with a friend or with friends. You could engage in a healthy debate with them, and so on. And then the Gemini new moon, May 26th, is in your first house, right? So the Gemini new moon is a renewal for you. It's ideally very refreshing to have Mercury in its home sign in your first house. So the Gemini new moon on May 26th is a great launch point for you in 2025, and Jupiter is still in your sign there, and Saturn is out of your modality. So think about the Gemini new moon as a really promising start. Like it's almost like the true start to your year in a lot of ways. And you could begin really anything new, a new relationship, new work. Um, you could present yourself differently, have a new sense of style. And yeah, it's a great time to reset. And it's ruled by Mercury, like I said, which is in your first house. So if you want to do anything communications related, you could tackle that. And Mars and Venus still trine each other from the 3rd to the 11th. So, Geminis, you're in a strong position to do something with content creation, writing, teaching, presenting, sales, and so on. And Saturn will be in your 11th at that point. With Saturn in the 11th, you're going to be maybe responsible for a certain community, organization, or group over the next 3 years. Or, you'll face a bit of distance from some of your friends. You might not resonate with some of your friends anymore in 3 years that you have now, but that's okay. You're just growing. So now you have Cancer. Cancer, the Scorpio full moon's in your fifth house on May 12th. Anytime you have a full moon in the fifth, you are either reaching a major creative milestone or you are um, reflecting on maybe whether or not you want to have children. You also might be going on a date. Some of you could cut off a situationship, but I think for a lot of you, it is a romantic moment with a full moon in Scorpio in the fifth. Like you could have a very physically intimate experience with someone on a date. And it's ruled by Mars in the second, so that's very sensual. So I think some cancers will just go on a really nice date or have an indulgent experience while on a date. Some cancers could be disputing or fighting about money or finances in a creative context. With the Sun conjunct Uranus, you could go viral on social media. Um, Pluto squares Mercury from the 8th to the 11th. Yeah, I mean, there could be some secrets there that are leaked within a friend group or some sensitive information about yourself could be leaked to another friend, which is yeah, I mean, obviously you want to avoid that. I think in general, everybody should avoid gossip on this Scorpio full moon. Um, with Venus in the 10th, your reputation though, publicly or in your career should be pretty good. Um, and yeah, I really think the full moon in the fifth is either asking you to have a transformative experience romantically or to turn to your creativity as a form of expression and transformation. So really dig deep into your creative impulses if you can. You could come up with some really fantastic, yeah, creative manifestations around that time. And then the Gemini new moon is in the 12th house. So this is a new moon where maybe you adopt new spiritual practices. Maybe you do, maybe some cancers are getting a procedure done in the 12th house there. Maybe some of you are going into a hospital and like getting, a procedure done. And you're just taking that lunar cycle to rest and relax and recuperate. I think a lot of cancers really should just kind of rest on that new moon. Um, and then Saturn goes into your 10th house. That's a big deal. Just ask Gemini's what that was like when it was in Pisces. Um, Cancers, you are possibly stepping into parenthood now. Now that Saturn's in your 10th. And other cancers are feeling a sort of heightened pressure to manifest what they want in their career. And a lot of cancers are going to be taking enormous responsibilities on in their career. So, let's go to Leo. So Leo, you have the Scorpio full moon in your fourth house. And a full moon in the fourth house is a time where you might move. I mean, some Leo risings are moving right now. Other Leo risings would be um, sorting out financial situations in their family, maybe asking for money from their family, giving money to their family, investing in property, adjusting their finances in light of a new property that they bought or are renting. Um, and some people might experience or some people might learn something very surprising about a family member as well. Mars and Pluto rule the full moon, and they're both in angular houses for you. So with Mars in the first, um, you're feeling pretty charged up. You're feeling competitive, daring. You're feeling energized. You're feeling, independent. So with Mars in the first, yeah, you could just be putting a lot of energy into your move. You could be moving, like I said. And with Pluto retrograde in the seventh, you might be reflecting on um, the transformation that you have experienced in your relationships thus far over the past 2 years of Pluto and Aquarius, or the transformation that you still need to go through. You could be experiencing that as well. And yeah, Pluto, Pluto squaring Mercury from the 7th to the 10th. There could be some secrets coming through about a parent or about a partner, or yet again, you could just be resolving some financial details or questions in a partnership, especially with Saturn in your eighth. Some of you are reclassifying your business. And then the Gemini new moon is in your 11th, and that is May 26th. I would use that Gemini new moon to enter into a new, I don't know, friendship situation. I don't know why I phrased it so awkwardly. You could start a new friendship. You could join a new community, start a new social media project. It's a very social new moon for you with Mercury in the 11th and ruling that new moon. Other Leos will get involved in politics, humanitarianism, or you'll just be very active on social media. So around the time of that new moon, you could just be commenting a lot on someone's posts, getting into an argument. Um, and at that point, Saturn goes into the ninth. So once Saturn goes into the ninth, some Leos will seek to go back to school, get a degree, or you will start to call your whole perspective on life into question a little bit. And Saturn in the ninth is also maybe eventually, over the course of its 3-year transit, compelling you to like take an ambitious long distance trip or something like that. Um, but yeah, pretty social new moon for Leos. Then we go to Virgo. Virgo's the Scorpio full moon is in your third house on May 12th. The third house full moon is very emotional in its communication style. You're speaking with somebody maybe about your deep repressed emotions. You're maybe sharing a secret with somebody. Potentially, you are returning from a trip. Um, Other Virgos are learning about the occult or something mystical or about psychology. Some Virgos are completing, yeah, an educational program. Other Virgos are realizing that they want to learn more about something. Mars rules the third house moon here because it's in Scorpio, and Mars is in the 12th. So a lot of Virgos are having sleep troubles right now with Mars in the 12th. So on this full moon, don't let an overcharged emotional conversation get into your head too much because it could just like worsen the sleep issues you might be having right now. Pluto is retrograde in the 6th. So some Virgos are actually learning something about their health, just like I talked about for Geminis. Some Virgos will have to manage some health related situation, or they are learning about something that they're coming into some kind of idea that may actually help them in their workplace, maybe, or their workplace with maybe it's AI or something. And other Virgos are learning something that would help them with their help improve their health in some way. Venus is in the eighth. I think that Virgos, you're experiencing some, yeah, there's some secrets maybe coming through in a relationship context on the Scorpio full moon. Some of you might even learn something sort of surprising about a sibling or a cousin or a relative. And Saturn's, finally starting to leave your seventh house, but you're still learning some tough karmic lessons in relationships. So with Saturn in the seventh still, I mean, some Virgos are learning a shocking secret about their partner and they have to cut off the relationship. Other Virgos are realizing that they finally have to confess or share their emotions if they want to maintain a connection with their partner. So vulnerability might be the answer there. Also with Venus conjunct Neptune in the eighth, make sure you're not getting scammed in a financial situation. Um, and Mercury's in the ninth, so some of you might be learning a secret while you're traveling, or because of squaring Pluto, or there's something educational about this full moon for you. I think a lot of Virgos are learning something either about their health or they're learning about a technique that improves health. Oh yeah, and then the Gemini new moon is in the 10th. And this is a powerful new beginning in your career. But, in Gemini, it could just be very tactical. Maybe you are on the Gemini new moon just deciding that you want to take a more, just a more clever approach to your job and take on more skills or take on more tasks. Because Gemini is very clever up there on the 10th house in the career. Um, so yeah, Virgos, you might just like begin a very busy period in your career at the end of May, May 26th, with the Gemini new moon. Um, and also, yeah, some of you could become a parent technically, or you could start a new job at that time on May 26th. And other Geminis are, maybe feeling slightly indecisive about their career, though. Maybe some Geminis are realizing, or sorry, Virgos. Some Virgos are realizing that they're a little bit bored with their career that they've had, and they want to pick up, again, different skills and see where it leads. Um, and Saturn going into the eighth house there in late May during that new moon. So Saturn in the eighth is a bit of, I don't want to say a tower moment, but Virgos are going to have to navigate some type of tower moment over the next 3 years. But it's showing you who you truly are at your core, right? It's helping you do shadow work, helping you face your fears. It's helping eliminate distractions. So a lot of Virgos actually are in May realizing that they have to give up a certain addictive habit because it's been bad for them or it's distracted them from the work they have to do within. And Saturn in the eighth though is a great time to start a business if that's what you're wanting to do. So yeah, if you're an entrepreneurial Virgo or entrepreneurially minded Virgo, you could start your company around that new moon. Libra, you have the Scorpio full moon May 12th in your second house. This could be a revelation around what your true values are, what your financial goals actually should be. You could hit a milestone with your finances. You could pay off debt. You could actually realize that you're in debt in other cases. Yeah, you could realize that you're in debt or that you, I don't know, owe some money to somebody, especially a friend. I mean, Mars rules the full moon in the 11th there. But yeah, for Libras, the second house, that's about your natural talents as well. So anytime there's a full moon in the second, you might be in Scorpio there, digging very deep to rediscover your natural talents. And there's a lot of stuff going on in your eighth house of investments. So Libras, if you're in hot water financially, just like really be proactive about dealing with that. If you're in a partnership where finances are a point of contention, be proactive and sort those out. Yeah, Mars in the 11th house does show that you could take some creative chances in a social media context. You could go to a concert, you could yeah, you could launch a new social media project or publish more content more frequently. And Venus is in the seventh again. So, and by this point, it's getting close to the end of the post-shadow phase. So you could experience a lot of social activity here, similar to Geminis. Geminis and Libras, you both have a pretty social month ahead. So, yeah, if you're looking for a bright spot here, be social, maybe even start a new relationship sometime this month with Venus in your seventh, or just harmonize with people, And with Mars in the 11th, avoid conflict though with friends. But really focus on the finances, I think, this month. And focus on, the financial values that you and a partner may hold and see if they clash at all. Hopefully they don't. Saturn is still in the sixth. So some of you are still refining and finessing your health and health practices. But then we go into the Gemini new moon, May 26th, in the ninth house. This is a great new moon for taking a trip abroad or overseas or a long distance trip. Others could adopt a new perspective or philosophy on life. You could enroll in a new educational program. You could, well, with Mercury ruling it in the ninth, it's sort of a very cerebral type of new moon. And in that way, maybe you won't necessarily feel like it all manifests right away, right? You're just planting the seeds for a new perspective. I think a lot of Libras are kind of just thinking about their faith or their religious beliefs completely differently now. So towards the end of May, you might adopt a whole new vision for yourself in terms of your beliefs. Um, and then Saturn goes into the seventh house. So that's a big transit for you. It's going to force you to disconnect from people who are not totally aligned with you values wise or long-term vision wise. Um, you may feel like you need more alone time than usual over the next 3 years, but also you're in a position to commit to someone long term. So if you're a Libra who wants to get engaged or married, Saturn going through your seventh house is a good time to solidify commitments. And Venus will be conjunct Chiron at the end of May. So if you have to heal a relationship, that will be the time. And by the way, as a Libra, some of your travels may be changing your perspective specifically. So when you travel right now, you may be adopting a whole new mindset. Scorpio, the full moon is in your first house on May 12th. So naturally, this is going to be very powerful for you. You really want to feel into things and just let the emotions pass through you, no matter how difficult they are. And, you could be really digging into the things that you're even hiding from yourself. But for a lot of you, it's going to help you be really vulnerable with somebody and just by tapping into your emotions, you can get closer to somebody. But the Sun and Uranus are conjunct in your seventh, so there could be a shocking change in one of your relationships, um, you know, or you could just like reinvent your relationship to avoid stagnation. With Mercury square Pluto, and with Mercury in your seventh and Pluto in the fourth, you could be working out some financial situations in your home. Maybe some of you are actually moving around this time as well. Some Scorpios, maybe you're settling into a new home. Um, but maybe you are learning a secret also about a family member. I talked about that for Taurus. Maybe you're also, though, doing that. Or about your partner. Maybe you're learning a secret about your partner. Um, and with Mars in the 10th, you could be fighting with a parent, but also taking big risks in your career. But don't let your career stress you out too much. I think with Venus in the sixth, If you find balance in your daily routines and your health practices, then you'll have the full force of Mars in the 10th. And you'll be able to show up in your career and make those big moves. So that's great. Um, but overall, it's a full moon in your sign. So it's a full moon of endings, right? Anytime a full moon is in your sign, it's a time to purge, let go, release any outdated habits. And for Scorpios, this could be about finances as well and money. And this is the conclusion of something that started in early November for you, um, specifically November 1st. And then we have a Gemini new moon on May 26th in your eighth house. And the Gemini new moon is, when it's in the eighth house, is really having conversations with the subconscious, or it's really trying to sort through all the details of a financial plan or of your investments. So some of you are going to be sorting through business related matters. Others are trying to figure out how to invest in something with a partner, like financially. Like you could be deciding to, connect your bank accounts or to have a shared fund or something. Like maybe you're having a child and you want to put money into a certain retirement fund for them or whatever. Um, Also, Venus conjoins Chiron in the sixth. So some of you at the end of May are learning about a better way to work on your health. And your health is going to take priority at the end of the month because Saturn goes into your sixth. So once Saturn goes into the sixth house, you're not going to be able to cut corners with your health. You're really going to have to focus on your long-term health with Saturn and Neptune there, right? So now let's go to Sag. Sagittarius, the full moon of the Scorpio full moon on May 12th is in your 12th house. And the 12th house is very abstract and liminal and spiritual. So the full moon in the 12th is helping you purge maybe addictions or anything that's contributing to mental health challenges. It is also maybe just going to show you some sort of foreshadowing moment in a dream. You might have a very psychic intuition on that day. You might be able to pick up on the subtleties of what's going on in someone else's mind. And it should be revelatory for your own mental health, though, generally. So you might be discovering things sort of through your intuition that you need to change in order to have better mental health sort of practices, I guess is the word, or spiritual practices. And the Sun and Uranus are in your sixth. So you might suddenly want to change your routine, your daily routine, in order to, improve your mental health. Technically, the Sun Uranus in the sixth can show random changes to the health, but ideally, that's not what it is. You're just shaking up your daily routines. And Mercury is squaring Pluto. So yeah, you might be deepening your knowledge of a certain health practice, or you are learning something about a coworker. You have to avoid gossip with a coworker here. And don't share any information with coworkers who are like loose cannons, because they could be gossiping about you. Um, with Mars ruling the full moon from the ninth house, some of you might be traveling a lot. If you're traveling a lot as a Sag right now, you have to decompress around May 12th because you might be, it might be a little depleted on May 12th. That could be happening. Yeah, you might be feeling a little tired. So the full moon is not like all that power. Like it is powerful, but it's not like the most memorable full moon for you. I think it's just a time of rest, honestly. Um, but while you're traveling, if you're traveling as a Sag, you could be involved in some steamy romance here with Venus trining from the fifth. So, Sag, if you're traveling and you're in a relationship, Don't be such a flirt. You know what I mean? Just keep it real. Then we have the Gemini new moon, May 26th, in your seventh house. So maybe you fall in love while you're traveling. I actually would like to see that for some Sages here. I think if I was a Sag, I would say fall in love while you're traveling, May 12th. And then start dating them maybe at the end of May. That's feeling good to me. That feels like a pretty clear narrative. Um, Venus conjunct Chiron in the fifth. Romance could be very healing. So maybe you find someone who's a bit more demonstrative and a bit more you know, ingratiating, is that the word? Or someone who's just can hype you up a bit more. Like if you're dating someone who's boring, they don't validate you at all. There might be someone else waiting for you there abroad somewhere. Um, and Jupiter, remember Jupiter's in the seventh, so this could be the birth of a really fortunate relationship for you. And then Saturn goes into the fifth. So a lot of Sagittariuses are going to want to start to think about having children. I think a lot of Sagittarius will start to think about having kids with Saturn going into the fifth. If you have kids already, you may experience a little bit of difficulty or distance from them. And if you're a creative person, you're going to have to, really focus on the creative work that you want to manifest because creativity might get a little bit boring for you, or you might be numb to your creativity a little bit for a couple years. But Saturn in the fifth can also help you manifest some amazing things creatively. So if you're ambitious creatively, let Saturn be a vehicle for manifestation creatively over the next 3 years. So now we go to Capricorn. So Capricorn, the full moon in Scorpio is happening in your 11th house on May 12th. And a full moon in the 11th in Scorpio could reveal some secrets among your friends. You could also have an epiphany about one of your friends. You could have a very emotional moment with a friend or in a community. You could learn about something mystical through social media on that day as well. You could go to like a healing ceremony. I think that's probably the best thing Capricorns could do on this full moon is actually going to a cacao ceremony or some other healing ceremony and experience healing in a group. And it could even just be a concert, going to a concert. And the sun is conjunct Uranus in the fifth. So maybe some of you are going on a really exciting date and you're going to a concert with a date. Or maybe you're the performer. If you're a Capricorn, maybe you're performing something on stage. And Mars rules the full moon from the eighth house. So that Mars eighth house transit is really powerful and really intense. Mars in the eighth can show that you're having a very physical experience with someone in a good way, like it's very intense, passionate, and carnal, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but something that's very visceral. Um, Others will be fighting about money, fighting about finances. Some Capricorns might be stressed a little bit here about debt. Pluto also rules this full moon from the second. I think a lot of Capricorns are transforming their values, transforming their relationship to money. I think a lot of Capricorns are considering maybe taking a job that pays a lot more than they're used to, but maybe it's a job that's a little bit more soulless. Maybe you have to figure that out. Mars trines Venus, and Venus is in the fourth. Yeah, I mean, some of you might be more ambitious about investing in a property, or you could try to level up and get a bigger property, but then you maybe find out that the down payment is more than you expected, or the security deposit is more than you expected, or something. But ideally, like, it's a good thing, this trine. I mean, maybe you're even meeting someone, maybe someone, yeah, just comes over to your house. I don't know. Could happen too. But the Gemini new moon is on May 26th, by the way, and that's in your sixth house. So a lot of Capricorns are taking on new jobs and new work at the end of May. Um, with Mercury in the sixth, Sun and Moon in the sixth, Jupiter in the sixth, or you're adopting a new perspective about your health, or with the square from Jupiter to the lunar nodes in the ninth and third, you might decide that you want to take a job that allows for more travel. But I think your perspective on work and health is changing pretty drastically. But at the end of the month, you are really, you know, probably going about your day to day in a completely different way. And then Saturn goes into the fourth. So Saturn in Aries, it's going to be in your fourth house, off and on for 3 years. When Saturn goes into the fourth, a lot of Capricorns try to move to a longer term home. So, not saying you'll figure that out on this new moon, but just keep in mind that Saturn in the fourth does put a lot of pressure on someone to find a new home. And it can also create distance between you and your family. But in other cases, you have to take responsibility over a family member, maybe who was ill recently. But ideally, you're just looking for a new home over the next 3 years. So now we go to Aquarius. Aquarius, the Scorpio full moon, May 12th, even though you're seeing, let me go backwards a day actually to adjust for that. The Scorpio full moon is May 12th, and it's in your 10th house of career, parenting, authority, public image. So anytime you have a Scorpio full moon in your 10th, it is an opportunity to, it's an exit ramp from your current job into a new job if you want. For others, it is a major moment to shine in the public, or you're just digging a little bit deeper into what you truly want in terms of your career. Maybe you do want to transform what you're working on. Others are maybe learning something about a parent or transforming their role as an authority figure or becoming a parent. The Sun and Uranus are conjunct in the fourth. So there could be some shocks and surprises among family members, among your parents. Um, and yeah, you might, and I'm not saying that in a super dramatic way, but like your mother might come to you and say, "Oh, I just, I have some interesting perspective now to share with you." Um, Mars rules the full moon, and it's in your seventh house, so you do have to mind conflict with a partner. Maybe some of you are fighting a bit with a partner. And because Venus is in your third right now in Aries, so you're trying to advocate for greater independence. You're really like standing up for yourself and vocalizing your values there. Um, and for if you have a partner who's very controlling, they might not vibe with that. It might ruffle their feathers, so you might get into a bit of a skirmish with a partner. But you know, you're ultimately standing up for yourself right now, and Pluto's retrograde in your first, so you're really reflecting on your transformation journey, your evolution over the past 2 years. And if your partner doesn't support that evolution, then you're going to move on. You're going to move on to someone else. You're going to cut the cord at that time. Mars in the seventh, you're like, I'm done. I'm not going to wait around for someone to change. I'm not going to let someone step all over me. So that could happen for some of you. And then, but I mean, overall, I think it's like pretty good full moon for you. I think it's like, again, either just like make your mark in the public, change jobs if you have to, have a heart to heart with a parent if you have to, and resolve conflict with your partner if you have to. By being very firm in your communication style. Then we have a Gemini new moon, May 26th, in your fifth house. And the Gemini new moon could help you tackle a new creative project. You could you could come up with a clear strategy for working on your creativity, doing some maybe creative writing with Gemini in the fifth. Even though writing is in the third, I think about Gemini in the fifth as creative writing potentially. Maybe you decide to give a presentation on that day as well. Maybe you put on a show or performance. The Gemini new moon could be the beginning of a new romantic fling. Could go on a date at that time. And Venus conjunct Chiron in the third is very, very healing, ideally in a partnership, but you have to talk through the wounds and the insecurities to get there. Um, yeah, the Gemini new moon to me is really good for you. I just think it's going to help you actually develop a process for anything creative that you do. That to me is fundamentally what it's about. So I don't know if you've read like The Artist's Way or something, but some kind of program like that could be really useful for you right now. And then we have Pisces. Oh, and for Aquarius, sorry. Saturn's going into your third house now. So with Saturn in the third, you are, really looking to master a new subject maybe, or a subject you've already been working on. Some of you might want to go back to school. Some of you might just take a certain subject more seriously and really focus in on it. But you also might be feeling a little bit more cautious after that for about 3 years in your communication style. You might be more deliberate in when and how you communicate, which is fine. And you might be like doing more with less. Because Aquarius risings, you have Aries in your third, you have Mars ruling your third house. So you're probably very talkative as an Aquarius rising. So with Saturn in the third, it's helping you make peace with silence. And you're learning that a lot of interesting thoughts were waiting to come through, but you had to like slow down a little bit for them to come through. And then we close off with Pisces. The full moon is in your ninth house, and the full moon in the ninth is illuminating your perspective on something, transforming your perspective, maybe your beliefs, your philosophy. Other Pisces are coming back from a trip, especially a long distance one. But I think a lot of Pisces are just like remodeling their whole perspective on life, to be honest. Because the Sun and Uranus are going to conjoin in the third house shortly thereafter, which is like very much an epiphany, total reinvention of mindset. Because we've had this conjunction many times during Uranus and Taurus, but this is the last conjunction of the Sun and Uranus in Taurus in this cycle. Mercury's in the third, squaring Pluto in the 12th. So some of you are reinventing your whole perspective on maybe spirituality or something spiritual. Mars is trining Venus. So with Mars in your sixth, you might be stressed a bit about work, or you're really leaning into your strength training, but you can't overdo it while you're training because you could really hurt yourself. But yeah, Pisces, you are, I think maybe putting in the work, and it is translating to financial success with Venus in the second, but you're probably a little bit tired right now with Saturn in your the final degrees of your sign. So Pisces, I think, again, like I said for Aquarius, slow down a bit and take stock of your perspective. Do you have a different perspective than you used to? Saturn's been in your first house for a long time. So what are you aiming for now, long term? Now that you've learned all these tough lessons over the past 2.5 years or so. Um, and some Pisces are also really hitting their stride with a media or publishing effort, which is great. But then we have the Gemini new moon on May 26th, and that's in your fourth house. So by the end of May, you're maybe moving, or maybe you're connecting with family members, you're talking with them a lot. Maybe you're traveling with family. I think a lot of Pisces are just going to be talking with their family a lot at the end of May and in that lunar cycle. And Venus, Venus will be conjunct Chiron in your second house during that new moon. So maybe you're healing some financial wounds or self-worth wounds. maybe you have a scarcity mindset and you're working on that now. But, Saturn's going to go into your second house, which I think is a good thing because it's getting out of your sign. Um, Saturn in the second is going to give you something to focus on financially. You're going to set completely new long-term financial goals and strive for them over the next 2.5, 3 years. With Saturn in the second, I mean, it may feel at times like kind of a long slog to like, reach your financial objectives, but sorry, hang on. It's allergy season in LA right now, so I'm really getting hit by that. But anyways, so Saturn in your second might inhibit um, some immediate financial gains theoretically, but you know, otherwise, you can still find financial rewards and you can be rewarded financially. It's just that you have to lock in on a long-term goal. Because we usually think about Saturn in the second as like delays to resources, like that the resources are blocked slightly. But I don't think about it that way. It's just that if you scatter your efforts too much over the next 3 years, then yeah, money will elude your grasp. But if you really home in on the long-term vision that you have for yourself now that you have Saturn in you've had Saturn in your first, you can attain as much financial success as you want. And in fact, you might be more successful at it now. But it depends on your ability to lock in on that goal, right? And Mars will still be in your sixth at the end of May. So Pisces, like really look at how you are strengthening yourself and how you're pressing or pushing yourself at the gym. But don't go too far with that. Otherwise, you could get injured. So, yeah. But yeah, I hope that the predictions and horoscopes for May have been useful. I tried to lean in a little bit more to the horoscopes this time and less on the global predictions. Um, it's an overwhelming world, right? And there's a lot of reasons to get angry. And but we have to find that space within our hearts to, show love for people. Because, again, it can be kind of frustrating to think about how far into the materialistic trap we've gone. But at the same time, I have a lot of hope because I know that like you and the people I know are totally tapped into the spiritual frequencies and the energies. And it's just a matter of people having the confidence to share their gifts because systems are going to keep collapsing. And like I said, it is the Western model that's collapsing primarily because consumerism has reached its endpoint. Atheism has reached its endpoint. Individualism is important, but I think that we live in a very isolated world. So connect with your local communities, connect with others, share your heart, Mars and Leo. Find the motivation to share your heart with others and encourage others to take risks to also be expressive of their journey in the same way that maybe I have been and others have been. So thank you so much. One more reminder. I do have a show in Los Angeles next Friday. It's a lot of fun. I promise I'm more personable in real life than I am on YouTube and Instagram and such. I try to maintain a bit of a stoicism on these videos, but the last show I had plenty of comedy bits, and it was a lot of fun. I think people find that I'm a lot more personable in real life. Um, but yeah, it's also a great way to get a reading. And it's a totally another level when you get a reading in person as opposed to Zoom. Not that the Zoom readings aren't effective and accurate, but when you're in someone's energy field in person, I think it does take on a totally different characteristic. And yeah, so it's going to be a really fun show. It's a great way to meet other people who love astrology as well. So yeah, come by, say hi, get a VIP ticket, and you can, be part of the meet and greet after. And tickets are, selling pretty quick here. So Make sure to get a ticket within the next few days because they will sell out. So thank you so much. Remember to download my 2025 horoscopes if you haven't yet, because you can already get all the information on these new and full moons leading through December. Also, subscribe to my Substack. And what else? Oh yeah, and take my astrology class about planets and planetary retrogrades, which is still available through my website. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a incredible, passionate month of May. Take care.